everyone. Thanks a lot for staying with CNN News 18. I'm Shivani Gupta and you're watching Plain Speak. A lot of people are very uncomfortable with the Gyanvapi survey mandated by court, and with it, the unraveling of true history of the structure in Kashi. There are the deniers, of course, who want to bury their head in the sand and refuse to accept the destruction of the ancient temple in Kashi. The same was done against proof for decades in Ayodhya too, mind you. Then there are others who will question the timing. But the reality is, both Kashi and Mathura claims are not new. This fight has been on for centuries. Remember, the Committee of Management of Anjuman Intizamiya Masjid had gone to the Supreme Court seeking relief against the proceedings of the lower court in this case. They had argued against not only the maintainability of the suit itself, but specifically the ordering of a survey by a commission and any orders that may follow from the findings of that survey, which has, of course, come into public domain. Claims of a shivling in the Wazukhana, which is the today's mosque premise, and now even a claim that the shivling has been desecrated and that there have been attempts to destroy evidence of the Hindu temple. The first and biggest takeaway is that the matter will continue. The Muslim side wanted the matter to be completely declared unmaintainable, but there is no bar on the proceedings by the Supreme Court, although it has been shifted from the civil court in Varanasi that was hearing the matter to the district judge in Varanasi. What possibly stole the most headlines today was this observation by the court that effectively ratified the survey, which is the bone of contention, that determining the character of a religious place is not barred by the Places of Worship Act. All that one is asking for is that the most holy, the holiest of holy Hindu places, which were destroyed, Ayodhya, Kashi, Mathura, must be returned to them. Is that really too much to ask? Remember, the case is a civil suit filed by Hindu devotees seeking the right to worship inside the premises of the Gyanvapi mosque, or on the grounds that it was a Hindu temple and still houses Hindu deities. But there are multiple other pleas, including a title suit, that are ongoing in various courts, and the decision on the right to worship plea can have ripple effects on other cases as well. Not to forget, the larger Hindu temple reclamation movement, which includes Kashi and Mathura most prominently, will also be impacted by whether the district court in Varanasi declares this plea to be maintainable in law. The main objection by the mosque committee is that such pleas are now barred under Places of Worship Act 1991. The claim in Kashi does not rest upon the finding of the shivling. It's incidental. Everybody knows the recorded history of the temple in Kashi.
Shivani, that a temple to Vishwanath was demolished and the Gyanvapi mosque was built has not been disputed by anybody. Why are we even discussing that?
What bothers me most about this debate and about how Sumant framed the situation is, why are Hindus being put in the dock? We are the victims here. Why are you asking, what are you going to do next? No. The first question is, we are the aggrieved party all around the world, be it the Native Americans in Canada, in the United States, Aboriginal peoples of Australia. Everybody is looking to them and apologizing.
हजारों वर्षों के इतिहास का, जिसका इतिहास रहा हो, सभ्यता रही हो, ऐसे महान राष्ट्र को उसको अपना सांस्कृतिक न्याय पाने का नैसर्गिक अधिकार है और उस राष्ट्र के प्रत्येक नागरिकों का कर्तव्य है कि उसको वो सांस्कृतिक न्याय दिलाएं।
मैडम, ये बात तो कोर्ट डिसाइड करेगा कि मंदिर तोड़ी गई और वहां पर मस्जिद बनाई गई।
आप नहीं मानते कि मंदिर तोड़ा गया?
कैसे मान लूं? वो कोर्ट फैसला करेगा ना। कोर्ट में जब बात है, अंडर द ट्रायल जब केस है, आप कैसे कहेंगे, मैं कैसे कहूंगा? कतई नहीं कह सकते आप ये।
मौलाना जी, ये हिस्ट्री की बात है, ये लॉ की बात नहीं है। हर चीज कोर्ट से नहीं आती है।
देखिए सर, आप लोगों का ये संवैधानिक हक था कि आप कोर्ट को गए और कोर्ट ने आपकी सुनवाई की और वहां पर सर्वे हुआ। हम इसको मानते हैं कि आपका संवैधानिक हक था, आप गए। अब मेरा संवैधानिक हक है कि मैं उसको अपोज करूं, मैं हाई कोर्ट जाऊं, मैं सुप्रीम कोर्ट जाऊं। जैसे कि अंजुमन मस्जिद वाले जा रहे हैं, चले गए हैं कोर्ट को, तो उनका वो संवैधानिक हक है।
निरंतर वहाँ पे उसके आसपास पूजा, श्रृंगार गौरी की पूजा होती थी, पंचमुखी हनुमान, कुबेर जी की मूर्ति, गंगा जी की मूर्तियां, वो सब पूजा वगैरह होती थी। उसके तहखाने में जाके पूजा करते थे, वहाँ पे व्यास परिवार है, वो सब करते थे। इसलिए उसका चरित्र कभी समाप्त नहीं होता।
When the character The conversion cannot take place in a protected site. What will be the outcome of survey? What will be the utility of the survey?
नहीं, सही सवाल पूछ रहे हैं अश्विनी जी।
नंबर
जवाब देता हूं। मौलाना साहब, कानून में लिखा है कि 15। अरे मौलाना जी सुन लीजिए, आपका सवाल मैं समझ गया, उसका जवाब सुन लीजिए, बहुत टाइम बहुत कम है। आप ये कह रहे हो कि अगर रिलीजियस कैरेक्टर डिफाइन हो भी जाएगा तो फायदा क्या होगा? यही तो फायदा होगा। कानून ये कहता है कि 15 अगस्त 1947 को किसकी क्या रिलीजियस कैरेक्टर था। अब सर्वे के बाद, रिसर्च के बाद, इस पूरे खुदाई के बाद, जो शिव मंदिर शिवलिंग मिला है उसकी टेस्टिंग के बाद, अभी जरूरत पड़ने पे और वहां खुदाई करने के बाद ये क्लियर हो जाएगा कि 1947 को वो मंदिर था कि मस्जिद, या तो मंदिर रहा होगा या मस्जिद रहा होगा।
The contention is only that the Advocate Commissioner has filed its report. Court has already invited objections. Then the parties are required to file their objection to the report. Report is not going to be implemented at present. Under Order 26, Rule 9 and 10, the Commissioner report is always subject to evidence to be led by the parties. The only contention was that it is for the court to consider the feasibility that the Commissioner report has been filed. Certified copy has been supplied. The chips of videography that has not been supplied, they should also be given. And if this Commissioner report is taken into consideration, so that will throw light on the subject.
The first question or the objection that we have been raising since day one was the mentability of this lawsuit. As per the law, as per the Places of Worship Act 1991, this lawsuit in itself is not admissible, is not maintainable, and should have been rejected at the very first day itself. So all the proceedings in the belonging to this lawsuit are invalid and illegal, be it the survey, be it any other order given by the civil court. All these proceedings are invalid. So now the court, the sessions court today itself has ordered that it would hear the mentability of the suit.
जो एडवोकेट कमीशन की रिपोर्ट आई है, एडवोकेट कमिश्नर महोदय ने अपनी रिपोर्ट में इसको शिवलिंग लिखा है, और जो छेद करने की बात कह रहा हूँ वो मैं अपनी बात नहीं कह रहा हूँ, जो कोर्ट के रिकॉर्ड पे वो बात कह रहा हूँ, 63 सेंटीमीटर का उसमें छेद किया गया है। तो पैशंस को तो इन्फ्लेम वो लोग कर रहे हैं शिवानी जी, जो ये कह रहे हैं कि वहां पे आज हमें वजू करने की इजाजत दी जाए। इनके वकील ने सुप्रीम कोर्ट में हमारी आस्थाओं का खिलवाड़ करते हुए, और ये पता लगने के बाद भी कि वहां पे शिवलिंग मिला है, वहां पे वजू करने की जिद की, और इसीलिए जब ये शिवलिंग मिला था तो हमने उस एरिया को सील करने की मांग की थी। और मैं एक बात आपके सामने बहुत जिम्मेदारी से कहना चाहता हूं कि वो शिवलिंग है कि फवारा है, इसका जांच हो ना। हम तो कह रहे हैं जांच हो, पर जब हम कहते हैं कि इस चीज की जांच हो तो वो कहते हैं कि नहीं, आपका केस ही नहीं चल सकता है।
What is the need? Why even go back in history and open up these old wounds? Even if what happened was wrong, why go back in history now? How would you respond to that?
Well, let's go into the history overall. And in the history overall, some of these sites were destroyed more than once. And the fact that they're in the situation they are is an old wound that everybody can see. For example, you can see the part of the temple on the mosque in Kashi. And we also have to understand that India is an independent nation since 1947, of course. Now, prior to that, India was under largely foreign rule in many places. We, of course, know of the British rule, but even under the so-called Islamic rule is largely a Turkish rule, by the way. Most of these people were Turks, whether it was the Delhi Sultanate or the Mughals. So under both of these, Hindus had no rights to reclaim their sacred sites that had been taken because the government was different. And there were many attempts. For example, Ahilya Bai Holkar helped restore Kashi Vishwanath in the late 18th century. And the Marathas restored a lot, like Ujjain. There's a Jyotirlinga there. And the only problem was the British came and took power, I think by 1818. And so they stopped those processes. So this means that majority Hindus were under minority rule during these Turkish Islamic period and British period. Now, after 1947, majority Hindus are being told that their first duty is to protect the minorities. So in other words, the majority is not protected in the Islamic, British, or now even modern period.
The fallout of the Nupur Sharma comments row is that multiple FIRs have been filed against her now, at least in 2 states, Maharashtra and Delhi. She has also been receiving death threats, some directly, some generally in public domain that can be seen and heard by others as well. She has been provided security too by the Delhi police. There are videos of kids carrying objectionable posters asking for death for Nupur Sharma, her beheading, Sartan se juda posters. At other places, cops have been attacked blatantly. Security forces have been sparred with. On the surface, a lot of these protests that never took any permissions from the police were demanding the arrest of Nupur. But if you scratch the surface a little bit, there were clear death threats too. We're not even showing you a picture of a Nupur Sharma effigy hung on a street from a pole today. What is the message being sent? At the center of the issue is hurting religious sentiments by comments or otherwise, and freedom of expression. Now, we have often discussed just where that line is between offense and justified expression. It is, in most cases, a thin line, and people can have differing views, even on the same expression. Protests in the name of Prophet and against Nupur Sharma's comments, spontaneous or otherwise, took place with demonstrations, but in several places they descended into stone pelting, blockades with arson, destruction of public and private property, and even attack on cops and public officers. If death threats in the name of hurt religious feelings are okay, if those outraging over Nupur Sharma's comments will also equally condemn threats against her and others. When 2 Nupur Sharma supporters were harassed and arrested, we asked the same question: is it a crime to support her now? Well, it is not just a crime, it is a death sentence, it seems. A man who reportedly supported Nupur Sharma has been hacked to death, beheaded in ISIS jihadi style in broad daylight in a market in Udaipur. Killers have apparently also gone on video confessing the crime and then threatening the Prime Minister of the country. So it hasn't ended with riots alone. It has now come down to murders. This is a chilling reminder of what happened in Paris in October 2020 when a school teacher was beheaded for showing Prophet cartoons to school children. Of course, most of us will remember Kamlesh Tiwari, who was shot dead and his throat slit in India, and the Charlie Hebdo killings. This is what you get for mollycoddling fanaticism and what you get for pandering to extremism. While the case the bench was hearing was on clubbing of multiple FIRs against her, the judges went on a rant on her comments instead and linked them to crimes that have taken place since the outrage against her comment. The court not only refused her the relief, asking if Nupur has a threat against her or if she has become a security threat, they also lashed out at her for, quote, fanning emotions across the country. There are some massive questions over the implications of such observations, even if not in order, as this is the apex court, and what is said inside court can have implications outside in today's state. The court said that the petition smacks of Nupur Sharma's arrogance. The court also went on to say that being party spokesperson is not a license to incite, referring to her TV debate after which her comments came to light. The court goes on to say Nupur single-handedly responsible for the unrest situation in the country. It said that Nupur should apologize to the whole country. In fact, they criticized the apology she had tendered via social media. And finally, and this is perhaps the most damning statement, the court said that Nupur's statements are responsible for unfortunate events like the Udaipur murder. But what also needs to be discussed is whether speech rules, what is allowed, what is not allowed, not just legally, but socially, can be a one-way street when you have several communities involved. Is there a double speak, a double standard involved, depending on who is making the comment and against whom?
It was repugnant, it was vile, the Prophet cannot be attacked, he is sacred, he is infallible. Having said that, the other things that you're talking about, the FIRs as a fallout, is a blowback of what has already happened. The real story is what happened. The real story is what has been happening for the last 8 years, in which the members of the BJP have been given carte blanche to say what they wanted, and this culminated in an extremely transgressive statement in which they had no control over.
All over the country, protests are spontaneous because the Muslims in the country all over the world have very much interest. This is the part of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is a part of their faith. So that is why they themselves came out and started protest.
But when people, just 1 second, but when other Hindus and non-Muslims are listening to these kind of violent protests, what mutual trust will be there? When such violent protests, beheading calls, Sar Tan Se Juda, violent protests across, already Nupur Sharma faced action. India has taken a very categorical stand that we will respect all religions.
As a practicing lawyer before this honorable forum and before other courts of this country, this is depressing and disappointing to say the least. This is a textbook instance of victim blaming and victim shaming. That a routine plea which is regularly taken before the court when a particular litigant is the subject of multiple litigations across the country for the very same cause of action, which should have resulted in transfer and consolidation to a single jurisdiction, was forced to be withdrawn. So it's not just a question of whether these observations found their way into the order. The end result is that she was denied a very legitimate and reasonable relief. Transfer to a single jurisdiction is par for course.
Yes.
So first of all, that denial, frankly speaking, exposes her to serious legal and, dare I say, illegal and unlawful harassment.
Yes.
Okay. And this coming from the highest court of the land is seriously problematic. 2, the outcome is not the result of a particular problem with the petition itself, but because the court feels that her conduct is arrogant, it reeks and smacks of arrogance, and it's an overreach of the magistrate's jurisdiction. I fail to understand when someone is specifically the subject of multiple litigations across the country and no single high court can give that particular remedy. The only option available to a particular litigant is to approach the Supreme Court.
Right.
So where else is she supposed to have gone to for justice? The International Court of Justice or to the Supreme Court of Pakistan? I don't understand. In terms of the remarks that have been made, I'm sorry to say they have the effect of prejudging the issue on merits. And the question of apology is not something that should have fallen from the highest court of the land. It is not for the Supreme Court to have made these unwarranted remarks under any circumstances.
Because, it's not just Nupur Sharma and Asad Owaisi or the 15 other or 20 other people in these 2 FIRs that have been done. There's so many names of so many people now will come up, located in different cities. And of course, everybody is going to say now witch hunting. First you say no action taken. And then when action is taken, it will be called a witch hunting, So I don't know. I mean, let's see what happens, but the way I see it is it's a non-starter. In pure policing and investigation terms, it could just become I think a fear factor tool just to see that hate speech doesn't happen.
We have got the constitutional right to demonstrate, protest, but this is not the way, because we don't have the right to do it, vandalize the things and resort to, arson, and then carrying the placards or the posters, beheading the BJP spokesperson, and Islam also does not allow this actually. So this, in fact, we as a community condemn this, and it is the duty and the responsibility of every.
Tough questions must be asked. We've seen this happening over and over and over again.
No, that's what I'm saying.
In the name of religion, in the name of sentiments, in the name of democracy, in the name of a law being passed.
जो माहौल बना दिया गया है इस वक्त, पूरा माहौल ही कुछ इस तरह का बना दिया गया है कि हेट स्पीच हर तरफ से आ रही है. इस पे we need to think about this, we need to consider upon this, we need to ponder upon this. जो सिचुएशन है आप चारों तरफ देख लीजिए, मे बी आई डोंट नो असदुद्दीन ओवैसी साहब ने क्या कहा और अंडर व्हाट चार्जेस ही बीन फ्रेम्ड, बट द थिंग इज दैट कि जो मौजूदा हालात हैं, the basic responsibility goes upon the people who belong to the ruling party. आप देखिए बीजेपी के जो तमाम लीडर हैं लगातार वो किस तरह की हेट स्पीचेस का इस्तेमाल करते हैं. कैबिनेट मिनिस्टर अनुराग ठाकुर क्या बोलते रहे जंतर मंतर पे, आप उनके जो अभी आपने देखा नुपुर शर्मा, उसके बाद प्रवीण जिंदल, they are official spokesperson of BJP, and later on BJP said that they are fringe elements.
So the party sacked them, na? What about Asaduddin Owaisi? What about his brother? Why doesn't Owaisi act against his brother?
It can be any XYZ, be it Asaduddin Owaisi, be it Nupur Sharma, be it Praveen Jindal, or be it Talha Ahmed. Anyone who speaks something that goes against the constitution, that goes against the law of the land, he should be booked and he should be charged, and he has to face the law.
This is exactly what they wanted for her. All this talk about the case not progressing, about the BJP being not harsh enough, about the government not taking any action. This is what all of these extremists wanted for Nupur Sharma. And today they are extending the same treatment to her supporters.
Shivani, you know, the fundamental problem of both liberalism and secularism in India is that it is selective. You know, for example, you have a case of a celebrated author who is not allowed to come back to India, who tweeted with great taking gay, you know, this shared and fraud, as he himself called it, over the predicament in which Nupur Sharma found herself in. And he's supposed to be a liberal icon, right? So much for his liberalism. So much for the secularism and people who swear by rule of law in this particular case, who have kept mum. They don't want to come out. They don't want to say openly.
And these people are also not discussing or condemning the slogan which called for the beheading over the blasphemy.
Yes.
So this entire mindset, you can see that the same thing, this blaming of murder on her speech is a line of defense taken only by Islamist and communist. The same remark we can see here.
The freebie debate is back at center stage, with Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal taking on the BJP, especially on charges that his party has furthered this culture recently of offering doles that a state just cannot afford. It's not just about offering a minimum amount of electricity or water free, but about announcing doles like monthly grants without any benchmark of who actually needs it or deserves it. Is it not time to separate welfare from freebies and draw a line when it comes to what kind of lofty, superficial promises can be made during elections and in party manifestos? If a state cannot afford it, how can parties make promises? But greater than even the economic argument is the moral argument. Are such freebies announced during campaigning a way of buying votes? Elections have to be free and fair. Do such announcements pervert the electoral process and bring in an element of quid pro quo on the basis of something free that is being promised? Now, in April 2022, in a meeting of Prime Minister Narendra Modi with senior bureaucrats, two secretaries, while highlighting a popular scheme that was announced in a recent state election, which is already financially in bad shape, had said that such schemes are economically unsustainable. And they had also sounded a warning that such schemes could take the states down the same path as Sri Lanka. We all know what's happening as far as Sri Lanka's economy is concerned. Solicitor General has once again gone on record to say that if freebies are considered to be welfare, it will lead to disaster. Remember, the Solicitor General has batted for a panel to look into this that was first mooted by the Supreme Court as well. The Aam Aadmi Party has also now made itself a party as far as this case is concerned. They are saying that there is a difference between welfare schemes and freebies, but they come under attack that their freebies are actually freebies and not really welfare. What has the Supreme Court said? The Supreme Court has raised a red flag. It has said that the economy is facing serious issues due to quote-unquote freebies. The real issue is also this: exactly who will bell the cat? The Election Commission seems reluctant, the courts may not have full powers in this regard, and political parties can't see eye to eye. In this situation, does an all-party panel help? Can political parties sit together, come to some sort of a consensus? Can a panel mandated by the Supreme Court with various other representatives help? Who should lead such a panel? A retired judge or a constitutional body or the central government? It is not sufficient to just say that you have written off certain bad loans, and that is why what the Aam Aadmi offers as freebies is okay. These are apples and oranges. The two cannot be compared. Is it not misleading the country when you compare write-offs with freebies?
Absolutely not, Shivani. The intention or the rationale behind that is that when you can write off 11 lakh crore ka loan of the few favorite corporate friends, you could very well invest this money onto the public.
Writing off a loan and waiving off a loan are two different things.
I've been asking them this question, but they continue to repeat
Forget
it.
that 10 lakh crores have been written off, which doesn't mean it's not being recovered. In fact, 8.6 lakh crores out of that has been recovered in the last 8 years. Please see this, Shivani. And the gross NPAs are at its lowest at 5.9%. This is a government that is recovering the loans that your friend Congress gave away and made into NPAs. You have the audacity to lie. They lied about corporate tax reduction when it has increased by 28%.
आप केजरीवाल बताएं कि जितनी बात वो टीवी पे बोलते हैं और उनके प्रवक्ता टीवी पे आके बोलते हैं, वो बात उस सुप्रीम कोर्ट के रिकॉर्ड में क्यों नहीं ला रहे? अगर आपको लगता है कि हाँ 10 लाख करोड़ का लोन माफ हुआ और गलत माफ हुआ, तो आपको शर्म आ रही थी सुप्रीम कोर्ट को बताने में? सुप्रीम कोर्ट में आप केवल ये कहने चले आए अश्विनी उपाध्याय की PIL मत सुनो, इस पे आप कमेटी मत फॉर्म करो, फ्रीबीज को मत रोको, क्यों भाई?
Firstly, see, there is a welfare scheme and there's a populist measure. I'm glad that you already began the debate by saying that free education and free healthcare is not an issue. When it comes to the concept of basic income, even that is an acceptable concept. Enough studies have been done on it, and it has shown no negative repercussions on the citizens of the country.
That's not true.
And you know, I
That's not
definitely
true.
object to this word freebie.
They make a promise. They make a promise in Punjab. They already know that the Punjab was in 3 lakh crore debt, right, when they came into power. If they are not able to, they want to fulfill the promises what they made. Why they came to Prime Minister and asked for a 51 lakh crore package? Why? You don't have money to run the state.
When it comes to welfare schemes, which are targeted schemes for the poorer sections, for the weaker sections of the society, the government seems to have a problem. Now, when we talk about targeted welfare schemes like minimum income support or any other welfare scheme which is to enhance, say, healthcare or education or to eradicate poverty, every single government, be it a state government or the central government, they have a responsibility to ensure inclusive development. No development is sustainable unless it's inclusive in its nature.
How do you get a nation to progress? Do you teach the women how to fish, or do you give them a fish every day? It's a very old theory, but it's a very relevant theory. You don't give a woman a fish every day. Rather, you teach her how to fish. Every time the topic of freebies and welfare comes up, the Aam Aadmi Party is quick to blame the BJP. But we have to understand what the Aam Aadmi Party does in its economic thinking is light years away from what the BJP does. A Mohalla clinic cannot be compared to Ayushman Bharat. Because if that were the truth, the Mohalla clinics would have stood up to the responsibility in the pandemic. Did that happen? No, it did not happen. You cannot give a city free water to people who are earning more than 10 lakhs annually and call it welfare because they can afford to pay their water bills. So can the free water scheme of the Aam Aadmi Party be compared to a Jal Jeevan mission by the BJP? Absolutely not, because there is no strategic targeting.
There has to be a mandatory financial statement as part of the election manifesto. It means whatever you are promising, you must mention that what you are promising, out of your total population, how many will be beneficiary, what is the amount you want to allocate, and what is the source of funding. Let the electorate should know, they should make an informed choice whether so much money for TV or for VCR or for scooty or mobile or whatever, are they willing to fund? Because ultimately funding will come from either taxpayers or market borrowing.
First of all, government does not have any money to spend on its own, and what it is spending is taxpayers' money. And I would not spare any party here, be it the left, right, or the center. Every single party does this. And if it was a welfare scheme, let me first clarify to all panelists here, whatever political affiliations you might have, if it is a welfare measure, it is not announced before the election. Now, whether it is a color TV, whether it is a cycle scooter, I don't care what it is. But the primary fact that you announce it before an election clearly proves that it is a quid pro quo. So the state, the people are getting bribed. To put it long story short, governments do not have the authority to bribe the people for votes. And that too, it is being taken from my right pocket and given into my left.
We know how to fund all these things. And this is not as though these borrowings can go unlimited. We have certain principles. We have Article 283. We have the Consolidated Fund of India. So there are certain guidelines, certain principles. If we are going to borrow more than 3%, the union government will not allow us to borrow. So it is not going to, it's not as though we are just taking away money and giving it just for the sake of winning elections.
Constitutionally agreed policies. The EC cannot by itself do this, nor can the courts. There has to be a political consensus, and people must decide whether you want to destroy our growth path, which is such an urgent necessity in this competitive world where our rivals are growing very fast. We really need to be a bit sensible about this. I'm not saying to stop giving free water. Don't make it indiscriminate, as we are seeing it is happening. Free electricity, big problem. Tamil Nadu, Punjab, it's a big problem. We have to address these issues for the sake of the future of the country and, for our children and grandchildren.
I think the first important data point that we all should remember is the increasing income inequality that has accompanied growth in India over the last 50 years. Today, if we look at the World Inequality Database, we know that the bottom 50% of our population owns a very small proportion of our GDP. But the top 1% owns over 40% of our GDP. And a number of these, statistics come out every year about income inequality. So any debate around freebies or any kind of social protection mechanisms have to be in the context of understanding the growing income inequalities in India.
At this point of time, as a country, we need to decide, where do we spend our money? Do we spend our money on welfare measures so that we ensure that each citizen of this country has access to good education and good health care? So first, you have to make sure that the service, the subsidy scheme, whatever you want to call it, is universal. Once people have benefited, and the section which does not need, you can bring in these riders. But at the start, it has to be universal.
So on the one hand, she says that it should be aimed at everybody because we do not know how to target them. But I don't know, I think she forgets the fact that she's living in a country called India. And whether it's the Aadhaar card or and direct benefit schemes have been there. DBT has been there for a while. So those could have been used and are being used, in fact, extensively.
But the central question I also asked you, Reena, tomorrow if there is a panel, would you be agreeable?
Yes, as a panel we can discuss, but at the end of the day, in a democracy, this has to be decided between the voters and the government they elect.
A stunning case has come to light from agricultural villages in Tamil Nadu. Entire land of as many as 6 villages in Trichy district is being claimed as Waqf land by the Tamil Nadu Waqf Board. Yes, you heard it right. Not one mosque area or an Eidgah Maidan or patches of land. Entire villages, which are primarily Hindu population villages with centuries-old temples, are being claimed as belonging to the state Waqf Board in entirety. What's stunning is that despite no history of the Waqf Board or Islam in these villages, which are largely agricultural in nature, the local registrar refused to allow buying and selling of these lands held by locals in their families and settled for generations. To sell their own property, they were being asked to produce an NOC, a no objection certificate from the Waqf Board of the state. What that story has done is blown the lid of what could be possibly the biggest organized land grab in the country over the last 25 years. Now, why do I say organized? Because the powers to the Waqf boards itself to declare and acquire virtually any land in the country comes directly from the Waqf Act of 1995. This act gives singular power to the Waqf boards, which comprise only of Muslims, to deem any land as theirs. In fact, it wouldn't be unfair to say that they are the judge, jury and executioner as per this act. How is a Waqf property identified? How is it even declared a Waqf property is frankly the clincher and the biggest concern over this act. So the Waqf board collects information on properties it believes to be belonging to the Waqf. It believes that there are certain properties that may belong to them, and then it conducts an inquiry into those properties. If the board is satisfied, it claims that the property belongs to the Waqf board, and then the decision of the board, unless modified or revoked by a Waqf tribunal, is final. You would be surprised to know that after the army and the railways, Waqf boards are the third biggest owners of land in the country. In the last decade or so alone, the amount of properties with Waqf boards has doubled in acres. So just this week, a bill has been introduced in Rajya Sabha to repeal the Waqf Act 1995. BJP MP Harnat has said that the Waqf decisions can't even be challenged in court, raising this as one of the objections against the act and the powers given to Waqf boards. First up, Raja Gopal, who belongs to the Mulikarupur village, owning agricultural land in Tiruchendurai. The village in question is actually joining us. What happened when you went to sell your land?
My name is N. Rajagopal. I belong to Mulikarupur village. When I went to sell my land to the registrar office in Chennai, They told me to get an NOC from Chennai. I asked them as to why they didn't inform earlier, for which they had no answers. I felt uneasy that very second. I fell ill and returned home soon. They told me to go to the Waqf board in Chennai and get an NOC. Otherwise, I couldn't register, I was told.
So this board, it put fingers on my house and say this is the Waqf property. I have to go before this board only. I cannot go to the court. I cannot go to any other place. I cannot go to the High Court. I have to go to this board which have 7 members and all the 7 members are Muslim.
So the point here is there is a temple which has been existing and has existed for the last 1000 or 1500 years. And that is a temple called as Padal Petra Kshetram, which means, where around 270 odd temples where saints went and sang. And that is the temple. And this is a place where the majority community is Mutraja community, who are also called Ambalathakarar, which means they are the protectors of the temple. They protected Srirangam temple, they protected Chandrasekhar Swami temple, which you are talking about. Now, how can they claim it as a Waqf property?
So when did this actually come in? So 1995 Waqf Act, and as JVC Sriram said rightly, there are hardly few Muslim families. Till 15 years back, there was not even a mosque in this village.
Okay.
These are predominantly Hindu villages. There was not even a mosque till 15 years back. So a mosque comes in 15 years back, and then these things are happening recently. Are we then to blame the state government? This is like adding insult to injury. We already have issues with temple lands being managed by the state government, and they are being mismanaged and they are being swindled. And now they have started having issues with residential houses, residential plots, the fertile agricultural lands, and to everybody's knowledge, this part of the region, this region in Tamil Nadu is the most fertile agricultural region ever, because this is where the Kaveri River is at this widest stretch. So till 2 years back, people known to me have registered, have done land transaction, house transactions, that they have bought and sold without any issues. So till 2 years back, people known to me have sold and bought, that there was no requirement of NOC. Then why did this suddenly come?
Article 14 says every citizen is equal. This act is totally against Article 14. Article 15 says you cannot discriminate Hindus and Muslims. This act discriminates. Article 25 says every citizen has the right, freedom of religion, right to religion. This act totally against Article 25. Article 26 says every citizen has right to manage, maintain their religious places. This act is totally against Article 26.
मसला ये हमारे पूरे समाज का है। जहाँ भी ऑल इंडिया में हमारे समाज के लोग हैं जिनके पास हमारी इतनी प्रॉपर्टी है, उस प्रॉपर्टी को हटाने के लिए जबरन बना किसी लीगल कार्रवाई के हमारी जमीनों को अपने नाम कर लेते हैं फर्जी तरीके से, और बोलते हैं हमारे लोगों को वहां से बेदखल करके ये वहां पे बैठ जाते हैं। फिर उस प्रॉपर्टी को ये बेचते हैं और खुर्द-बुर्द करके खा जाते हैं। उसका कोई रिकॉर्ड नहीं इनके पास। ना ये कोई चैरिटी वाला काम करते हैं। आज तक वक्फ बोर्ड ने एक मस्जिद को भी तामीर नहीं करवाया। मस्जिद भी अगर तामीर होती है तो आम जनता के पैसे से तामीर होती है। फिर भी ये कहते हैं कि साहब ये तो वक्फ की प्रॉपर्टी है। वो कैसे हैं जब आम जनता ने उसको बनाया है। इसी तरीके से मदरसे बनते हैं, उसको भी आम पब्लिक बनाती है, आम पब्लिक के चंदे से बनता है। फिर ये कहते हैं कि साहब ये तो वक्फ का है।
In Tiruchendurai, there are properties with survey number of small area can be given with full detail from the board, and people are getting all the answers and they are going back. But Tiruchendurai village, in our list, it was mentioned as 389 acres, Tiruchendurai village.
But how?
All the
Can you please explain to me the antecedents and the history of how this land came under the Waqf? That's what I'm asking you. What is your connection to this land? Who donated this land to you?
Government list is having village name and the surface area.
But sir, you should be able to explain to me what is the Waqf's connection to this land? Who donated this land to you?
These are all detail available, so that we are expecting all the detail from the archive department.
My question to you is, what is your problem with the survey, sir?
So why government is interfering in every?
But you just said it comes under the government. इसमें interference क्या है? ये तो government के अंदर आता है.
गवर्नमेंट की पिताजी की प्रॉपर्टी नहीं है, ये जिसने दिया है वाकिफ ने दिया है।
तो यही तो पता करना चाह रहे हैं ना, मेरे साथ विक्टिम है, वो कह रहे हैं कि हमने तो दी नहीं है प्रॉपर्टी, तो उनकी प्रॉपर्टी ले कैसे ली?
सुनिए मैडम, आपके ऑफिस को बोल दिया जाएगा कि ये ऑफिस आदिल हसन का है, तो ये आप कोर्ट में फैसला होगा कि CNN IBN प्राइम टाइम में फैसला करेगा।
नहीं तो हम तो कह ही नहीं रहे ना कि हम फैसला कर रहे हैं, तो गवर्नमेंट ही तो कर रही है ना सर्वे।
व्हाट इज ट्रिब्यूनल डूइंग देन?
दैट्स द बिग क्वेश्चन. What is the tribunal doing? And can you trust the Waqf tribunal to decide its own board's decisions?
What your chief executive officer is doing?
That's a question.
Waqf tribunal. Why not your CEO is appointing advocate for that? Why not they are approaching to High Court and Supreme Court?
Yeah, so that all of that is fine.
I have also gone through the Waqf Act, and the Waqf Act amended in 2013. There is no word regarding the Waqf Board. The Waqf Board can claim anybody's property and it will be full and final. Nothing. These are the misleading allegations from the people. There is no word in the Waqf Act that the Waqf Board words will be final. There is no word.
As of last date of I think 2021, 8,54,509 properties worth 8 lakh acres have been claimed as Waqf property. In 2009, number was just 4 lakh acres. How did the land increase? Secondly, how unequal it is during partition, when Hindu refugees left Pakistan, those properties are given to Muslims who migrated to Pakistan. But the properties which belong to Muslims who migrated to Pakistan were not given to Hindu refugees. They were given to Waqf Board.
To the best of my legal knowledge, there is no such trust in any other religion. And in fact, to the best of my knowledge, anywhere in the world, and in Pakistan, even in Pakistan, where any trust or any organization has the kind of powers that the Waqf has. And that's actually quite tragic and quite shocking. Shivani, you were very right that this is the largest owner of land in India, second only to railways and to the army. What's also interesting is, unlike any other organization, including the government, the onus shifts on the owner of the property to prove that the land belongs to him. Even the government does not have that right. It's quite amazing.